Big breaking news from Leeds United. Javi Gracia has been there. So has our reporter Tim Thornton. Tim, what can you tell us?
Good news for Leeds fans. Leeds United have a new head coach. Javi Gracia has agreed terms to become the new head coach here at Leeds United. It's taken just over 2 weeks following the departure of Jesse Marsch, but Leeds have their man in position. It is subject to a work permit. He'll sign a flexible contract here at Leeds United, and as long as that work permit is obtained, he will take charge of the team for the game against Southampton this weekend. We know that he arrived here earlier this morning to finalise talks over his appointment here at Leeds United. He really impressed everybody here at Elland Road when talks were accelerated on Sunday night. He does have this track record, of course, of keeping Watford in the Premier League when he took over at Vicarage Road. They were in a difficult position at the time. He steered them to safety, steered them also to an FA Cup final. So Leeds feel as though they've got the right man with a proven track record. And after a lot of frustration, after identifying their targets and being frustrated because they weren't available, Leeds have finally got their man, and Javi Gracia will be the new head coach here at Elland Road.
So Leeds themselves think they've got the right man then, Tim. What about the fans? How will this be thought upon by the fans out there?
Well, I think there's been a lot of frustration, a lot of criticism for Leeds because there wasn't a swift appointment to Jesse Marsch. But I think the intention was always to try and make a swift appointment, but the targets that Leeds identified were targets that were in work, and with that comes difficulty, and they weren't able to prize those managers away from their clubs. Obviously, Michael Skubala was placed in charge for the game against Everton at the weekend and for the previous 2 matches against Manchester United, and the intention initially was to keep him in charge for the upcoming games. But I think after the defeat against Everton on Saturday and the prospect of Leeds potentially going to the foot of the table with a defeat this weekend, I think the time was right to act, and the fans, I think, will be quite relieved that Leeds have got a new head coach in place. Also worth pointing out that Michael Skubala will remain with the first team for the foreseeable future. He's got a lot of credit in the bank for the job that he's done over the last couple of weeks in steering Leeds through a tricky period. But yeah, this has been really, really frustrating for everybody concerned with the club when they've done their research, identified their targets, made the approaches, and not being able to land those targets. There comes an element of frustration, and I think that has boiled over a little bit with the supporters as well. Now there is some clarity. Leeds have got a new head coach in place, and that means that they can focus fully on what is a massive game for the club against Southampton on Saturday. Not necessarily season defining, but if Leeds can get a win with a new head coach in place, then that could change the whole mood around the club.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. In terms of that, though, just tell us, just put it into perspective, what a job he has on his hands there.
I think it's a job that a lot of people will actually look at and think this is a decent job to get at the moment, because Leeds, although they're in a difficult position, most people would look at the transfer window they had and think, yeah, that was a good transfer window for Leeds. They made some really good acquisitions, so that would be a big plus. Also, the fact that the team have been playing well, playing with a lot of confidence. They've created a lot of chances in games. They were disappointing on Saturday against Everton, but they lost to that Seamus Coleman goal where the goalkeeper could have done better. Against Manchester United, they played really well in both games, were 2 up at Old Trafford and could easily have won the game at Elland Road before Manchester United scored 2 late goals. So I don't think there's a great deal wrong, but Leeds do need to start scoring goals more freely, maybe get a little bit more confidence into the side in the attacking positions. They've not won in the Premier League since November, so clearly there is a lot of work to do. But I think if they can get the bounce factor from a new head coach, then there will be a lot of positivity around the club, because a lot of the performances have actually been better than the results would suggest. And you look at the strength of the squad with some key players like Patrick Bamford now back from injury. I think there's reason for optimism and reason to think that a new manager can come in and make a big impact and steer the club up the table.
Finally, Tim, obviously they've got Fulham, who are flying high at the moment in the Premier League, in the FA Cup. Might they go on a good run in that? That would certainly lift the mood, wouldn't it, at Leeds?
It would, because Leeds have had very, very little cup success over the course of the last few years. So I think any success in the cup competitions will be welcomed by the supporters. Of course, the Premier League is the priority, and it's all about staying in the Premier League for Leeds this season. But I think a good run in the FA Cup, and who knows, a lot of teams have already been knocked out. A lot of the profile teams have been knocked out in the competition this year. Leeds have got a manager now, a head coach with a track record in this competition. So if Leeds could go to Fulham and get a result, then the fans might start dreaming of a trip to Wembley, and that might have a positive effect on the league campaign as well. So there's a lot to look forward to as far as Leeds are concerned. And now we've got some clarity on the new head coach, I think the fans will be a lot more optimistic about the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be. Thank you very much, Tim.